Welcome, everyone, to the Entertainment Buffet podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Prosek. Jessica Quaz is still away for a little bit, working on some things, and I've been doing a rotation of various guests on the show. Really excited for this episode because I'm doing my first ever panel, the most guests I've ever had on the podcast before, because we are going to get down and dirty ranking the Muppet movies. And before we go too much into it, I will specify these are the 8 theatrically released movies because obviously there's tons of holiday specials, direct to video, TV shows. Like, this is a franchise that's been on for, like half a century now, and we're just it would take forever to rank all of that, and no one has seen all the things, and if you have, please message me because I'm very interested. But yeah, we have a panel of guests to discuss it as we go through our ranking. I'll go ahead and let the guests introduce themselves one by one. But first off, thank you guys all for being on the podcast. I appreciate you coming on. And go ahead and start introducing yourselves.
My name is Marc Lindquist. My favorite Muppet movie is the original The Muppet Movie. My favorite Muppet is a tie, actually, between Miss Piggy and Dr. Teeth. And most recently, I work on a segment on Entertainment Buffet called Nowhere to Go, Nothing to Do, and it's just me trying out a lot of stuff for the first time. Keep it interesting. It's throwing knives, it's making pies, and anything in between that.
Hi. I wasn't sure if you were going to throw it back to us or not. My name is Paul Desman. My favorite Muppet movie is The Great Muppet Caper. And my favorite Muppet is Kermit, only kind of by default, because that was my nickname in college. Feel free to ask why later. And I do a YouTube show called Quarantine Kitchen. You can find me at youtube.com/Paul Desman. And full disclosure, I'm not actually a cook or a chef. I'm just a guy in quarantine just trying to put food on the table. And it's just me like making stuff that's around the house. However best I can. So there you go.
Hi, my name is Aaron Brokenbough. I am what you would probably call a content producer at this point in my life. My favorite Muppet movie, it has to be, honestly, the original Muppet movie. I think it's great. My favorite Muppet will have to be Fozzie. I love Fozzie Bear. You can find me on social media at Aaron, which is YeahHHARANN. I thought of it in high school, so there's that.
Hi, I'm Marissa Steele. I would have to say that my favorite Muppet movie is the original as well. I originally ranked the 2011 one as my favorite because it brought me back to the Muppets, but then I've been rewatching them all this week, and the original's just can't get better. And then my favorite is the tie for Muppets is Statler and Waldorf. So yeah, I was actually surprised none of you guys picked that either. They're my favorite. They're lovely. Currently just, trying to be creative in quarantine. So you could just go to my website, it's marissasteelyourgirl.com, for anything that I'm doing, making TikToks, learning the piano,
Nice.
trying to stay busy. So yeah.
Awesome.
Hey everybody, my name is Juerke. My favorite Muppet movie is The Muppet Christmas Carol. My favorite Muppet in general, I'm gonna go with Animal because he's wild and crazy, and that's what I was as a child, so I related to that totally. I'm currently the co-host of the podcast Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. It's a film review. We are on Entertainment Buffet, so you can find us there. And yeah, I do a variety of other content producing, video editing, and just trying to keep myself busy and looking for work like everybody else.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for being here. And I guess I should have said my favorite Muppet movie is Muppet Treasure Island, and my favorite Muppet is also Fozzie Bear. So that was the only Muppet that was the same for two of us, and everyone else had different ones. I think that's what's so great is there are so many awesome Muppet characters that like everyone has a favorite. But yeah, before we jump into the ranking, what I did was a lot of these movies I hadn't seen since I was, a child, and some I hadn't seen at all. So I watched them all in order, chronologically, from how they were released, just so everyone knows what's in contention. Because if you're wondering why a certain movie wasn't included, as I mentioned before, it's just the ones that were released in theaters. So that includes the original Muppet movie from 1979, The Great Muppet Caper, The Muppets Take Manhattan, The Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, Muppets from Space, The Muppets, the one that came out in 2011, and Muppets Most Wanted that came out in 2014. So there were 8 that released in theaters over the last, 40 so years. It feels like, yeah, it's got to be 40 years now, something like that. Math, which we found out before we recorded the podcast, is not my strong suit, and probably good I got out of banking. So what I had done to try to get a vote out to the people on their ranking was create a form where people would rank from 1 to 8, 8 being best, 1 to least. Posted it on a Muppet fan group on Facebook, some other geek groups, and obviously everyone here on the panel. And I'll just say, because I think it's hilarious, there was a 3-way tie for second and a 5-way tie for first. So there was really no decisiveness. And then we realized, as we were discussing it before we started recording, that there may have been issues with some people filling out the form complete opposite of what was intended. And also, I may have just done the math wrong when I was trying to add them together. So what we did was we just took the 6 of us, redid the form, made sure we all did it right. And this ranking that will go from 8 to 1 is based on us. It did not factor the 50 so people that voted before. So if you voted and you're wondering, I'm sorry. I thought I made an easy form, and I didn't. I messed it up. So maybe I'll just put out another form for fun and see what people vote, because I'll be curious the differences. But yeah, we're going to be going, as I said, the least favorited Muppet movie all the way to the best, and kind of discussing along the way. So let's go ahead and jump in. The least favorite Muppet movie that came in at number 8 was Muppets from Space, from 1999. Mark, did you just were you excited?
Yes, I 100% will always call this the worst theatrically released Muppet movie, and it's for one very specific reason. Well, 2 actually.
Okay.
One, they kind of killed a joke of Gonzo being he's a whatever, a whatchamacallit, a blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, he's an alien. That's kind of anticlimactic, and the joke's kind of over now. So what's the point of that? And 2, my favorite Muppet, Miss Piggy, has very little screen time in that. She pops in for like 2, maybe 3 scenes, and then her and Kermit aren't even an item really. It was just very lackluster, and so I always call this one my least favorite.
Does anyone else feel the same way, that they were, well, obviously through our ranking, this was favored the least, but anyone else have strong opinions like Mark on this one?
I agree 100%. When they kind of ruined the whole, what is Gonzo? Whatever. It kind of broke my heart. And although I was legitimately like, come on now.
Exactly. It's not cool.
I agree 100% because
So yeah, I watched this when I was watching them all for the first time since probably grade school, this one. And the big thing that stuck out to me about this movie was it's actually the only one that isn't like a musical. There's a musical number at the end, but it's the only movie that there aren't musical pieces and sets sprinkled throughout the film. So that stuck out to me as an interesting choice. And yeah, I was a little indifferent on the whole Gonzo whatever revealing thing, because I was like, okay, well, they're trying something different. A lot of the other movies are focusing on Kermit and obviously like the Kermit and Piggy stuff, but they decided to focus on Gonzo. And maybe I was a little biased because I think he's like my number 2 favorite Muppet, so I kind of liked that he was towards the forefront. But I just think, to me, the only thing that was really favorable in this movie was I'm pretty sure I have the right Muppet, right? The Jeffrey Tambor's kind of assistant character who was a Muppet. I think Bobo the Bear. Is that correct? He had some funny moments. Otherwise, yeah, like this did stick out in comparison to the other ones, where it almost felt like maybe this could have just been like some sort of sketch, like what if he's an alien or whatever, or maybe like a little TV special, with the fact that this got like a full theatrical release. And then was the last Muppet movie released so it came out in 99 until 2011, so a long time, where I think that had a lot to do with, I don't think it did that well at the
It
box
did
office.
very poorly at the box office because people didn't like it.
Yeah. So anyone else strong opinions on Muppets from Space?
Not necessarily a strong opinion. It was pretty forgettable, so I'm kind of on board with everything everyone's been saying. But I was just curious because I did not know, Brandon, that you said that Gonzo was your number 2 Muppet. Like, for a movie that features your number 2 Muppet and to be so low on the list, like, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think I personally, when I did the ranking, didn't put it as low. I think I put it somewhere in the middle. I think I kind of liked the idea of them trying to do a movie where it wasn't a musical. Like they were clearly trying something different, which I think we could all agree with franchises in general, with movies or long-standing properties. The problem is they don't try new things, and therefore they kind of just, feel the same. And then especially watching these in order, like the 3 Muppet movies that came out in the 90s, they did Christmas Carol, Treasure Island. These were long-standing stories already, whereas like this one, they tried to do something original. So I appreciated the idea. The execution may not have been the best, the script may not have been the best, but I think that's why I put it somewhere in the middle of my personal ranking, and also because I love Gonzo. I didn't necessarily mind that Kermit and Piggy weren't a heavy item, because almost every film they are a heavy item. So yeah, that was just me. But
I
go on, Marc.
also have mild beef because it was also at that weird period of time where they kept trying to explain where a lot of things came from. Like Disney had like the Huffalump movie, the Tigger movie, and they kept being like, hey, remember these properties that have been around for a while? It's like their origin story, kind of. And I'm like, did we really need that, though? Like, do we need another one?
I did.
Like, everyone's getting tired of it, and everyone already forgot about it.
I needed to know what Tigger was from, but that's
that's another podcast.
Supposed to be the only one.
All right, so strong opinions. Muppets from Space, the number 8 Muppet movie. We'll go ahead and move on to number 7, which this was a close with number 6 for the voting, but it was the last one that came out in theaters, which is Muppets Most Wanted, dropped in 2014. It had Ricky Gervais, it had Tina Fey, it had I want to say Phil Dunphy, but it's Ty Burrell. And yeah, it had an interesting plot where there's a Russian criminal frog that looks exactly like Kermit, but there's a mole, and Tina Fey being a Russian guard in a prison, and there's prisoners with Danny Trejo, Ray Liotta. It's really ridiculous, and I'm not surprised it's towards the bottom. I think I had more fun with it because I'm like, okay, this is just weird. I had no idea that there was this whole Russian plot involved because I didn't really pay attention when the trailers came out. But yeah, what is everyone's feelings on Muppets Most Wanted?
Can I just say something? I'm kind of shocked that it's so low.
Me too.
Yeah. So like, I mean, is it going to be number 1? No, but like, is it supposed to be this low? I don't think so. I mean, again, you have such a very aware cast, and it's like basically like this is probably like around the same revival time when they do like right after they do the 2011 one, right?
Yep.
So I'm just like, there's still some team. There's like still some like type of like steam. There's some traction. You got like people who are like pretty much in their like at the peak of their career at that time. You know what I mean? Again, Tina Fey, Phil Dunphy, Ray Liotta, right? Like they're like
Did you
Danny
say
Trejo.
pinnacle of Ray Liotta's career?
Listen, wait, is that before or after he started doing the procedural drama with Jennifer Lopez?
I
Because
can't say
that's
I've
it.
seen
But
that.
I've seen a couple episodes. Like, do you think that was just like, yep, this is it? Like,
It was after Goodfellas. How about that?
Fair,
Oh, I love
fair,
good.
but that's.
I mean,
But
it was
that's how you got
also
the
after
job.
he was on Hannah Montana, so
Oh
I mean,
God.
You found your market, you found your curve. You're like, all right, you know who we want? We want him. We want Ray Liotta to walk from the Muppets. Folks want it, obviously. Like, what else would you want to cast him for? I, I mean, I think it's fun because you get like this, this kind of like not espionage, but you get to see a little bit of Russian culture and like gulags and whatnot. And
I
That's
like the
where I go to get my Russian culture.
Right.
yeah, you go to a gulag. Where else would you get?
I like how you just referred to gulags as Russian culture. That's pretty.
Is it not? No.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely Russian. I don't know about Russian culture.
I
Yeah.
clearly need to do more studying.
It's really weird. I mean, like, because I totally forgot. All I remembered was the poster with Ricky Gervais and Tina Fey. I knew nothing of the plot, and then watching the trailer and the fact that there's just a Russian, basically like a twin of Kermit,
With them all.
with a mole, and he's like a badass and like escaping prison and then blowing things up. And so you have like someone who's trying to be Kermit, but then Kermit's thrown in Russian jail for like the whole movie. It's a really absurd plot that I think I put it more towards the top because I'm like, well, at least they tried something, like it may not be great, but I guess I just am always favoring towards, I appreciate when originality is attempted.
I would also say, building on the like originality, it also gave a lot of good throwbacks to like how the Muppets are always very self-aware of everything and love breaking the whole like fourth wall aspect. And it starts off immediately like that, where it's the backwards version of the last movie, the end. And they're like, wait, what's going on? What's happening? They ordered a sequel. They have a whole number about it. And then also, I thought the songs in this one were phenomenal.
Yes.
Like the whole interrogation number, I have that on my running list because I'm just like, legitimately, give me the rhyme schemes, give me that like pizzazz from Sand Eagle. I'm all about it.
They do have I believe it was Ty Burrell doing a French accent, and then Sam the Eagle being like basically the law enforcement partnership going after, going after the Muppets. And there's like this whole joke with like who has a bigger badge. And I was just like, I feel like that's a joke that is for kids, but I think adults hear it a different way, which I always appreciate when kids movies can make jokes for adults as well. But yeah, it's a wild movie. I now that you're mentioning it, the numbers I think were fun. But the one joke that really got me was when they were putting it together. I think it was Scooter and Fozzie, and there was like a picture of Kermit, and it was like a mole's on it. It's just like, oh, where's Kermit or whatever, and then like he like covers the mole. He's just like, hey, Kermit, and like just the fact that like the mole is just like, wait, what happened? Like
yeah, and it takes them
so
like
stupid.
most of the movie to recognize that, where they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
they don't even acknowledge that Kermit's talking super weird the entire time either.
Yeah, he's like, it's a cold.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to number 6, which was The Muppets Take Manhattan. This was actually the last movie that Jim Henson was involved in. It came out in 1984. Before there was like a gap before they started making movies again in the early 90s. yeah, anyone as far as their feelings on Muppets Take Manhattan?
I just think that for me, it wasn't the most memorable. You know, it didn't have anything that really stuck out to me as being phenomenal, whereas the other ones I can recall jokes from. I can recall this. And for that one, it was just like very middle of the road rating for me.
Exactly.
Other ones, because I felt very strongly about either one for everything else. Whereas this one, I was like, I don't feel very passionate about you. You have to have passion in the Muppets relationship.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the only joke I actually remember from this movie is like at the beginning where they're like, "Oh, how much money do we have for a hotel?" And they're all in like a bus station locker, and that's like the
Right,
whole thing.
right.
They're like, "All right, we're here."
Right. Or
And then I was
both.
like, "Oh," and then I can't even recall much else what happens. I'm like, Kermit gets amnesia at some point. And
We all got amnesia after that.
So I have to speak up a little bit because I have a somewhat of a personal relationship with this movie because when I was a kid, we would, use the VCR to tape movies off the TV, and my parents only knew how to do it successfully twice. And one of them was Superman 2, and the other one was the Muppets Take Manhattan. And so we ended up watching it a lot. And yes, Kermit gets amnesia. You're right. It's not the most, dynamic or fun one, but I do remember, I mean, to this day, there's an inside joke in my family about how we talk about when Kermit does get amnesia and then he goes to work for the advertising firm and he meets these other three like frog-like people that are not Kermit, but they're kind of like him, like Bill, Gil, and Phil, I think. And, they're trying to come up with slogans for this thing called Ocean Breeze Soap. And they're like really struggling with it. And he's like, Ocean Breeze Soap, it's just like taking an ocean cruise, only there's no boat and you don't actually go anywhere. I don't really think that works. That's what that was them trying to figure it out. And Kermit just goes, well, how about you just, say it gets you clean, and he becomes a huge advertising guy. So I happen to remember a lot about this movie.
Clearly.
but I also did not rank it as high. I don't think it was even in my like top 50% of on that ranking, because it's still, like, oh, you get amnesia, okay, you can do a lot with a plot whenever the main character gets amnesia, so it's kind of like a cop out. But it was also Jim Henson's last one, so that was also special. But so yeah, that's where I'm at.
That was fascinating watching you like replay that scene. Like I have never seen such dedication in
Maybe
a way
you could
like
just go
that.
through the whole movie and then we'll appreciate it as much as you do.
Well, wait till we get to my favorite.
I always got the jokes from this one confused with the original. So it's kind of like, wait, was this in this one or was this in the other one? Or was it in the original? So I kind of was like, wait, no, there weren't a lot. Like we talked about it already. The jokes didn't stand out quite as much. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is where we got to lower this one down just a little bit on the scale, because the nostalgia thing is there, but it just didn't like resonate with me as much as the other ones.
Definitely. So I know that I personally put this as my least favorite. Least favorite Muppet movie, and the big reason was, so like obviously they call it like Takes Manhattan. The whole plot is that they were like in college and had a successful play, and so they want to bring it to Broadway, and they just kind of show up and they're like pitching it and they're trying to get it picked up. They have no money, and which I was like, all right, well that's accurate. You can't you're out of college, you don't just have money. And the fact that there was 30 minutes left in the movie, I think I paused and looked, and they're starting an amnesia plot with Kermit, because like they get the movie picked up by a producer. They're like, oh, we got to produce it in like a couple days. And so like, obviously it's gotta, and then they're like, well, where's Kermit? Cause he gets like hit by a car. And I was like, why are you introducing an amnesia plot now? Like, shouldn't that have been like maybe part of the movie like earlier if you're going to do that? But that's where I got like, and like, sure, this happened in the 80s, but like maybe it's because me looking at it now where I'm like, Jesus, I hate the amnesia plot. That it happened so late in the movie, and then they finally like find him because he comes there to lunch with the ad execs. Like I love that stuff with the other frogs, Phil, Gil, and Bill or whatever.
It was Jill. I just remembered it was Jill.
Oh yeah, like I enjoyed that gag, but I just didn't like that it was that late in the movie when like most of the movie there was like him and the waitress human character where like Piggy would see them in the distance hugging and she thought Kermit was cheating.
Right.
And I was just like, there's that plot point, and then we're gonna throw you amnesia plot point.
Right.
And I was just like,
Right.
why do we need this stake now? Like the stakes were already going the whole movie, and now you just changed it.
Well,
Muppet movies are dense. Like there's a lot.
Yeah.
They want you to think. They want you to like go along with the story. You gotta give it what they get. 30 minutes in amnesia storyline, you just gotta go with it. You're like, okay, yeah. This puppet doesn't I'm sorry, Muppet. That's
we'll blur that out later.
Put in this swear jar.
Yeah, really. But let's not forget though, before the whole amnesia thing happens, when they go to the first producer that they're trying to pitch the show to, who like tells them this is a good idea and that they're going to produce it, I believe played by Dabney Coleman. The cops come in to bust him because he's a fraud, and Gonzo is used as a weapon. He grabs him by the nose and he's swinging Gonzo around to fend off the cops and other Muppets. So like, I mean, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and you did have like Piggy chase down like a burglar in the park and I think tackle him, which it's always funny having Piggy kick ass.
It's not really a Muppet movie for me unless Piggy is either threatening someone or beats the crap out of someone at some point in the movie.
But I will say this though about Miss Piggy, like if I'm looking for a partner, I need someone to have like that type of just ride or die, just like ready to like go through a window on a motorcycle for me. Like
Exactly.
I need that type of I need that commitment. I need it now. I need it. I will love them. If you are a Miss Piggy type,
we found Aaron's kink.
That's right.
Fire a therapist. We
gotta get one first.
Well,
if you don't have a problem, is there really a problem?
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and move on now to number 5, which I was a little sad that this one was where it was because it's my favorite, and that is Muppet Treasure Island. So yeah, I will let everyone else, weigh in on this first before I just geek out because it's my favorite.
I'm just going to say this very fast because, you and I had talked about this, Brandon, how you were disappointed in my ranking of it because it was so low. I don't even remember it. Like you told me Tim Curry was in it. I was like, oh yeah, Tim Curry was in that. I don't even remember the movie. So I'm like, how could it be like that great? And I love the Muppets, but like it was just forgettable to me. So I'll just throw it out there.
This was in the top 8 just purely for the song that starts the movie. It's still, I rewatched it like a week ago, and I'm still sitting there humming along to it. It's like, okay, fine. Right now, hey, I dig it.
I think it's top for me. Just Tim Curry alone as pirate, one-legged pirate, phenomenal. Like, forget everything else. I just want Tim Curry looking like that forever.
I think that was why I also ranked this one lower, is because I rewatch it mainly for Tim Curry, and it's not actually because of the Muppets that I really enjoy this. Like, Kermit's so stale through the whole thing. Like, as the captain, and I'm like, I get that that's the Treasure Island character, and that's what Kermit would play, but I'm like, Kermit's kind of boring in this, and I didn't really care about the main kid, and they're like, we're going on an adventure, and I'm like, if you say that one more time in this movie, I get it. You're on the adventure. You're on the boat. Bring back Tim Curry. Just do a Treasure Island with Tim Curry. Because again, I didn't really feel like it was as Muppety as I wanted it to be as a Muppet movie.
I think that's totally fair. Especially that little kid too. He annoyed me.
Oh, his voice is so obnoxious.
So obnoxious.
And now that every single one of us has trashed Brandon's favorite Muppet movie, why is it your favorite?
Wait, I thought I was supposed to be saying the pros of it.
All right.
Pretty high.
So, and this will show my age. Like, this was my first Muppet movie I saw. It came out when I was about 4 or 5, and so I don't think I saw it in theaters per se, but like we got the VHS, and it was like one of the handful of movies that my older brother and I agreed on. It would be like, all right, do we want to watch like Back to the Future? Do we want to watch like A New Hope? Like, do we want to watch Muppet Treasure Island? It's I love the musical sequences in this. I think there's a lot of jokes that even rewatching it still got me, as an adult. And I agree, though, when I rewatched it, that I don't like the actor who played Jim Hawkins. I think that was I don't know. He didn't quite work for me, but this was also my first exposure to Tim Curry, which a lot of people, I think there was memes that was like, it shows your age when you can say where you first saw Tim Curry. Cause I saw like this, and then a little bit older, I would see reruns. I would see showings of Clue on Comedy Central. So like, that was like the 1-2 punch where I love Tim Curry. I think he's a great villain. And I love one of my favorite jokes at the beginning that I think even as a kid I realized was a bit much for like a kid's movie. It's a fourth wall breaking joke where now I'm forgetting. Bones, Captain Bones dies. I can't remember if it's Captain, but he dies.
Billy.
And Rizzo just goes, "He died?" And this is supposed to be a kid's movie. And like that just got me. Also, much like Christmas Carol, this is where they focused on the dynamic of Gonzo and Rizzo, which I thought was interesting. I thought they were a great buddy comedy duo. It's interesting that Marc brought up they found Kermit boring in it, but I think that's where I kind of liked it wasn't just another movie about Kermit, because up until that point, like all the other movies were about him in some way. And so I also am a huge nerd for pirates. I co-wrote and co-created a pirate comic book. I love pirates. And so it just makes sense that this one stuck out to me, with the action. I love the cabin fever sequence, especially the one side character. He's just like, "I've got cabin fever." And then one guy's like, "I've got it too." And I don't know why that always got me, the way he said it with that accent. And that's where I learned what cabin fever was. So yeah, it just, to me, it came out right at the right time to where it was the first one I saw. It introduced me to the Muppets. But watching it again as an adult, I realized why some things like the casting of that actor for Jim Hawkins, it's like, yeah, I don't think I've seen that actor in anything else. So clearly he didn't have a flourishing career after that. No offense to him.
Right. Not even in other Muppet movies either.
I want to look at what happened to him if he was in anything else.
His IMDb just stops.
Literally just
Right.
Muppet Treasure Island.
And then
Peak.
But do you need anything else? I mean, to be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else I could say about that. Anyone else have any thoughts on Muppet Treasure Island before we move on?
I wish that it was ranked lower.
I hated it.
And muted.
I
Muting is like the cyber version of like a trap door. Like,
right.
Yeah. Anyone else? Or are you just all gonna trash it?
I did enjoy the joke where it's like, old Jim, very old Jim, dead Jim, and it's just a skeleton that someone's holding up as like the crew.
Oh no. When they go through all the Muppets characters in their names is just ridiculous. They're like ugly, fat, boogeyman looking, and it's like this beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Present. And then they're like Angel Marie, and it's this like ugly ass Muppet. Like and Kermit's face is just like,
who hired this crew?
yeah, can I speak to you guys for a moment?
Yeah, I love that. He's like, who hired this crew? And it was just like, he's like, a cook and a man that lives in a bear's finger, Aaron, you look upset.
He's ready to move on to the next one. That's why.
Yeah, he's like sick.
kind of.
He's like, I got more to say later.
No, it's not my favorite, and I think it also just has to do with, I just don't like pirates. Like, I just think it's a very, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I'm just not into pirates. And then, like, I don't know if you guys are like privy to this, about there's been like this like a sea shanty like thing going on TikTok. So I have a friend who keeps sending me sea shanties from TikTok, and then I'm like watching them and like I'm seeing them, and then I'm watching this fucking movie about like pirates. I'm just like, I hate it. I hate everything.
Did TikTok
about
ruin
this.
a good movie for you?
Yeah, yeah. We should write
That's
think
the
pieces
worst
about
thing
it.
TikTok
TikTok is
ruined for you.
ruining movies.
It sounds like TikTok is ruining pirates, and pirates are now ruining the movie for it.
Yeah, I mean,
The associative
whatever.
property.
Whatever. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
Not on the
and
good pirate side of TikTok.
and Wayne brought it up earlier. The opening number, I'm pretty sure when I put it on to watch it, I just like started remembering the lyrics and was singing along, you know, shiver my timber, you know, just like got along with it. And like, I'm not super musically inclined. So whenever I can remember a thing, I'm like, it must be catchy. But anyway, that is number 5, criminally low. We're going to move on to number 4. Which came out in the 90s right by it, which was Muppet Christmas Carol. Which this one is another one
That seems so low.
I was a little surprised, I'll be honest.
I want to hear what Marissa said. Right?
Yeah.
I hate it.
You hate
There's
it?
so many. I mean, it's maybe due to my time of seeing so much like Christmas Carol stuff and seeing it done better.
Right.
And then rewatching it, and just like, for me, it wasn't a nostalgia thing. I got bored watching it. I love Michael Caine, but everything else, I was like, I didn't even finish.
Nice. Yeah.
I know the entire movie by heart. I know it like the back of my hand.
Marc, you're right next to me on the Zoom, so this is making me very uncomfortable.
For the listeners, Marc just got so swivelly with his authoritative
I got
delivery
real
on that.
swivelly because I watch this movie like 5 times every December. Again, I think it's hilarious. It also has the one line that I figure just encompasses what the Muppets are as like an entity, which is at the very beginning where it's like, and I'm Charles Dickens. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're not Charles Dickens. I am so. A blue furry Charles Dickens who hangs out with a rat? Absolutely. That's just what the Muppets are. They're like, yeah, just roll with it. Yeah, you know, Charles Dickens is a whatever, and he hangs out with a rat who, you know, somehow knows everything. It's great.
The only line I like is when they're trying to hop over a gate or something, and then the rat's like, oh, I left my jelly beans. And goes, and Rizzo comes back, he's like, wait, can you get through that fence? He's like, yeah.
You can fit through those bars?
You idiot.
So? Storytellers are omnipotent. I know everything.
God.
Yeah, going back to the whole, the Muppets are incredibly self-aware, and I figure they get really self-aware in this movie too, just with the whole narrator aspect and of everything. And I also really enjoy just at the end with Miss Piggy, where it's like, hey, Miss Piggy doesn't actually beat anyone up in this movie, but she definitely threatens to lift Scrooge right off the pavement because they're interrupting Christmas. It's like, you are rude.
Wayne, I think, did anyone here, correct me if I'm wrong, so who had this as their favorite? Did some people have this as their favorite Muppet? Okay, Wayne, go ahead. Let's talk about it. It's your favorite. Are you upset how low it is?
No, not at all. It's fine. I figured it was going to be right around this position. Yeah, I'm surprised that it's disliked as much as it is by members, and that's totally cool. I get it. For me, it is totally a nostalgia factor because having performed The Christmas Carol many times as a child for various plays and whatnot, I always thought it was done poorly. So to see it done by the Muppets, which I've loved, and you know, just this was one of the first movies that I saw with my mother figure in my life, so it resonates there. And now that she's passed on, I have to watch it just for my own special little time. But like One More Sleep Till Christmas, where they're closing down the shop, I get emotional just thinking about it right now, and I don't really have a true reason why. It's just something that I connect with. So yeah, I love it. I love the Christmas Carol, and I think this is actually one of the better versions that I've ever seen. So
Feeling really guilty right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. I will give you that,
You're
Wayne.
like trashing it. And you're like, it makes me tear up. It's like really important to me, and I'm over here like, fuck it. Like, I'm so sorry. I take everything back.
no, it's all good.
No, that's the best description I've heard of that movie. I mean, I'm the Christmas, like in general, Christmas movie, Christmas production of whatever fan and in general. But like, that was a great description as to why someone would like this. And like, I never actually even thought to compare the Muppets version of A Christmas Carol to like other productions of it to see how it ranks up. But I just have a personal thing with this movie because, as I think Brendan mentioned, it's the first, it was 92. It was the first Muppet movie without Jim Henson because he died in 1990. And I grew up, which also goes to why my nickname in college was Kermit. I grew up doing an impression of Kermit the Frog, and loving Jim Henson, loving the Muppets. And I saw Muppet Christmas Carol in the theater when it was released in 92. And I was like, it's the first Muppet movie in 8 years. This is going to be awesome. I want to see how his son does at doing the voice. And just because I think I was like 13 or 14 and was just, little angsty teen kind of person, and was like, really, that's how you're doing the voice? Like, I can do the voice so much better than you're Jim Henson's son. Damn you. And it just like set the tone for me for the whole rest of the movie. I'm like, I don't care that it's about Christmas Carol. I just didn't like it. And like, there are some good parts. I've rewatched it since, and there are some good parts. It's just that was my initial, like, the core of it was, I was just kind of like, I could immediately tell it was not Jim Henson doing the voice, and it didn't sound like Kermit the Frog to me, and it just turned me off. So
right. For me, the whole Tiny Tim aspect of it, made me so upset about just, I'm going to sound horrible here, but it made me really care about a piece of cloth. I know it's not. Not Tiny. I know it's coming too. It's like, all right, well, all right. Yeah, it made me feel things.
I shit you not, when he died, I was like crying. And I was just
He died?
Spoilers.
Marissa.
And this is a kid's movie?
I was like in tears, and like I grew up Muslim, so like a lot of Christmas wasn't happening, but like this was like one that like came on TV, and it was like formatted for television or whatever. So like it was pretty like ingrained, right? So like that's always been like my favorite like Christmas movie, probably like the Christmas Carol. But no, it fucks with you. Like, you don't even like it has the levels there, and you don't expect it to go there because it's just like, these are Muppets, and I'm not supposed to be crying this hard, and yet I am. And Michael Caine is Ebenezer Scrooge, and you're just like trying to like make it work in your mind. I don't know.
So one clarification, because you made me curious, Paul. So Kermit was voiced by Steve Whitmire, who also did Rizzo the Rat. It was not Brian Henson. Brian Henson, one of the sons of Jim Henson, did direct the movie. This was actually his directional debut. He did this one, and then Muppet Treasure Island, and then years later, Happy Time Murders. Which I'll talk about that on another podcast because that was interesting to watch. But
well, yeah, I appreciate that clarification, because all these years I've been hating Brian Henson, and now I should be hating Steve Whitmire. So like, so thank you.
To be fair, what a difficult job to do, because obviously, Jim Henson had been doing Kermit since like the 50s, 60s. Yeah. And so no one like that's kind of like whenever someone else has take over such an iconic character, it's like people are gonna usually not like the next person. I think it never stuck out quite as much to me because Muppet Treasure Island, as I said before, was my first one, and then when I eventually saw Christmas Carol on VHS, like that was just how Kermit sounded to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it is interesting that like specifically like these two movies is where they kind of geared towards having almost a human main character in the Muppet movies. It'd always been about the Muppets, but these two, it was obviously about Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge, and then Jim Hawkins with Treasure Island. So and then also in these two movies, Rizzo and Gonzo were heavily favored. So maybe that's why they got more time, was because they were worried about all the characters that Jim Henson voiced and played.
Right.
But it's hard to know. But I think that played a factor when they were kind of deciding on which Muppet should be what character.
Right. And plus, I was also a 14-year-old punk, so there's that.
So yeah, I was surprised, because I know when I did some posts about Muppets, tons of people said Christmas Carol was their favorite. So when I saw that this didn't even quite get to the top 3, I was surprised. But yeah, any final thoughts on Christmas Carol before we move on to what got 3rd?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Apologizing again. For my
I was going to
hate
say it's
Christmas.
probably my favorite version of the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Come in and know me.
Yeah, everything about him. I'm like, yes, Christmas Present. In so many other versions, I'm like, dude, Ghost of Christmas Present's really depressing.
Which, okay, to me as an adult rewatching, Ghost of Christmas Past was
Super
creepy to me.
Yeah.
No,
Can you look up how they made that? Because it was a doll / an actual human / a robot /
Well, it's floating in water to make it have the whole slow
Yeah.
motion effect, and then
I didn't like it. I just didn't like it.
at the very least, they cut off that song during the Ghost of Christmas Past segment.
As a kid, I
Then,
never noticed
it's
it.
the VHS release, and then everyone hated it so much that they cut it out for the DVD release.
Really?
Wait, really?
Where it's Scrooge's girlfriend is love is gone or whatever. There's
Yeah.
a whole song that they cut out because everyone was like, this sucks and we don't want it to move.
That is my wife's favorite part, and she's always pissed because we can never find a version that's got that in there.
When I finally
God.
upgraded from my VHS copy to the DVD copy, I was ecstatic when it was.
Mark, it sounds like you're gonna have to send your copy to Wayne. Actually,
Yeah. Very divisive for a Christmas Carol. But let's move on to number 3, which was The Great Muppet Caper. This is the second Muppet movie. It came out in 1981. This is where the Muppets obviously are in England, and it's supposed to be kind of like the style where Kermit is a detective and Fozzie is his partner, and Gonzo's a photographer. And there's an insane musical number with Miss Piggy and a human person just falling for Miss Piggy. And I this was the one out of probably all of them that I saw when I was really young, but seeing as an adult, I'm wow, there's a lot I forgot about. This movie is ridiculous, but I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts because it ranked pretty high. It was number 3.
Maybe it's for Aaron, who loves Miss Piggy, because it is all just
yeah.
fetishizing her. He's the most sexual being in this movie, and I
Oh my
live
God.
for it.
Exactly. This is about Miss Piggy. It's in her prime. She's getting everything that she wants and needs. My favorite will have to be when she's on the runway and they start going through doing the dream sequence of her just with her synchronized swimmers, and she's just I was this is peak, peak Miss Piggy right now. Honestly, I can't even get into it.
You can't get more Miss Piggy than that.
You can't get more Miss
That's
Piggy than
Miss
that.
Piggy.
It's just yep, this is what she needs. This is her moment. If Miss Piggy, that was her drag opening. This was her letting the world know that I have arrived. This is me. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You can't argue.
I
Oh,
want to know what Miss Piggy's
I
drag.
know.
I mean,
What Miss Piggy's drag name would be? Who would know? Let's find out.
Miss Piggy.
Huh? And then you also got to wonder, Kermit really, worthy of it? Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna say sometimes.
So
Maybe not all the time, but sometimes.
I was surprised that I mean, Mark, because you had mentioned that I think you had said earlier that your tie was with Miss Piggy as one of your favorite Muppets, right?
Correct.
And you guys are all right. This is like Piggy's movie. I mean, it's got carjackings, it's got motorcycles crashing through glass ceilings, it's got Miss Piggy like kicking ass in like every other.
It has her literally bending
fucking jail. Yeah, she took out of jail. It's insane how awesome this movie is. In case you couldn't tell, I ranked this as my number one because it's got everything and it's so awesome. But I mean, and there's one I don't understand. It's not even that funny. It's just stuck with me ever since I saw it as a kid, where like Kermit and Fozzie and Gonzo, I think, are taking like a taxi back to their hotel, and the taxi driver is like, "Hey, what hotel are you at?" And inexplicably, one of them goes, "We're on the second floor," like as if that's an actual answer you would give to that question. And then it proceeds to have the car crash through the hotel, and like the actual accurate hotel they were staying at to drop them off. And it just for some reason stuck with me. Like, what hotel are you at? Oh, we're on the second floor. Like I don't know. I just threw me off.
Muppet.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just saying it's Muppet logic at its finest. Like,
yeah.
Doesn't need to make sense.
Right.
You're getting where you need to go. Like, there's no segues. Let's just get there.
And
perfect.
The best thing in the world is the cut back and forth between like Charles Grodin and like his like I guess you would call watered down Charlie's Angels. I'm not really sure what that was, but preparing to steal the baseball diamond at the museum or wherever the hell it was, and they're going back and forth between the actual criminals and the Muppets who have figured out like they got to stop this, and they're going over their itinerary, and he's like grappling hook, radios, synchronized watches. And they cut back to the Muppets and they're like wax lips. They're like, oh, I think they're in my other pants.
Rubber chicken. It's in the shop.
Yeah, exactly. Or he's like, where's the, where's like some tissue? And he's like, oh, I think it's in my other pants. He's like, or I think I had it. He's like, did you leave it in the other pants? And it's of course one of the guys in Dr. Teeth's band. And he's like, I don't have no other pants. It's just, yeah, all, like the shit that they're asking for, they don't even need to stop a heist, and they don't even have that anyway. Anyway, it's so good.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
No, go.
I was just gonna say, I think the best scene is when Miss Piggy's climbing the house, and that English couple is just like, oh, there's a pig climbing the wall. They're like, right. So the weather is just awful always. And
I'm sorry, dear. Did you say a pig was climbing the storm drain? Yes.
I believe you did.
Yeah, John Cleese.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just like her running around the house, and he's like trying to follow her. And then the doorbell rings, and she's like, I'll get it.
And then like he gets in the closet, and he's like, not to be rude, but can I help you with something? And she's like, yes, a recommendation of a good restaurant. He's like, oh, okay.
See, it's interesting, like watching this movie that I forgot so much of, and now hearing you all say it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm remembering why it was ranked higher, because I think I put this a little bit in the middle towards the bottom, just because when it first started and like, the Great Muppet Caper, I'm like, oh, it's going to be like kind of like heisty or, like detective story in some way. And it's just like shenanigans the whole time. Like there's no, like the plot is so not the focus in this movie. Right. It is just like it's almost like they had all these set pieces and they're like, well, let's just throw it together. And they're in London now. And yeah, the fact that they have a Muppet doing like a synchronized swimming musical piece, I think is just like exactly the explanation you need as to like Jim Henson constantly pushing things throughout his career. Because I recently watched a documentary, and so often it sounds like when they would have to develop some type of technology for the Muppets was because he's like, why don't we do this or something? They're like, that sounds very difficult and very expensive. He's like, oh, I think we should make it happen, you know?
Right.
He's like, I think we can do it. And
Yeah.
like, that's how in the first movie they had Kermit on a bicycle, you know, and now they're like, they jump to Miss Piggy, like a puppet, or excuse me, a Muppet.
Swear jar.
That's two.
Put it in
That's
a swear
That's
jar.
too. Swimming and doing this huge sequence, and then the fact that a human person is just like unironically and also genuinely, like, it's not like part of like, oh, he wants to deceive Miss Piggy. He actually like has fallen
It's a
for
love
her.
Miss Piggy.
I'm like, this is ridiculous.
lot in this movie.
Springboarding off of the whole bicycle thing, though, it's a fun fact in this movie because there's that whole like when they sing that song and they're all riding bicycles. Jim Henson was never able to explain fully how they did the two Piggy and Kermits on doing like figure eights around each other, because it was in an age before computer generation. They didn't do it stop motion, and they were like, "So how did you do it?" He's like, "Yeah, we're not going to talk about it," because I think he made his crew so mad getting that shot that he's like, "You know what? They rode bikes. That's it. The two of them rode bikes, and that was how it went off."
Yeah, I don't know how they did the figure eight specifically, but I did see something on how they just generally had a Muppet on a bike, which was basically setting them up marionette style and then having a big crane over, and then like they're driving and then someone's like above, kind of like, you know, I just like
for some of those, but again, it's that
insane.
one specific shot that he's just like, "We're not talking about it. I'm sorry. We got it. That's what mattered."
Right.
I'm just thinking about like the PAs and like it's just like everybody behind the scenes who's just like, "What do you know? We just do this Muppet movie." It's just like, I don't know, like people are mad because they didn't get the shot right. It's just like Miss Piggy's like wet right now and I don't know what to do. Like it's just this weird, like I think I'm like thinking about like behind the scenes of just like how many people had to take in order to orchestrate such like this long, like, you know, it takes a lot of work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just has to, and it's that in and of itself that's just like, I guess, the magic of Henson. But like I know that I would be pissed personally, like trying to like work through that. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. Like it takes a very special person.
And speaking of the bike scene, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's from The Great Muppet Caper, where like, isn't that the one where like Kermit is like riding the bike and he's trying to show off to Miss Piggy that he can like ride? He's like on one foot.
Yeah, it's like
this.
one foot standing.
Right. And then I believe whoever it was earlier that said their favorite Muppet was Waldorf and Stadler. He's like, of course they're just there.
Oh yeah, they're just in the park.
Yeah, watching him ride these bikes. He goes like, "Look, Waldorf, no brains." You know, it's so good.
Which like him doing that on the bike, like that's an ode to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
right.
Which is like not a British movie like at all, and like such a weird reference to throw like, you know, 10 so years later into a Muppet movie. It's just so random. Yeah. Anything else before we reveal the top two?
I will say this has my second favorite Muppets breaking the fourth wall moment, and it's when Miss Piggy is interviewing at Lady Holiday's office, and then Lady Holiday just starts monologuing about her brother, being like, "Oh, he's a scoundrel and he wasted all of his money and blah blah blah," and just like when it's all done, Miss Piggy just goes, "Why are you telling me this?" And then her response is just, "Oh dear, it's the plot exposition. Had to go somewhere." And just continues.
Right. Oh,
like, there it is. That's the plot of the movie. Let's move on.
They do that another time with the bike, like the motorcycle, how she gets the motorcycle.
Oh my God.
It just falls out of the truck and lands there with gloves and everything. And she's like, turns to the camera. "Oh, what a coincidence." Like,
right.
So did anyone have this as their favorite? Oh, it is your favorite.
Oh, it is my
Okay.
favorite. Oh, well, I mean, she not only does she ride the motorcycle, she crashes the motorcycle through a glass ceiling and tackles somebody in the
while getting chased by a bunch of cops.
Right,
Because
after
she just sits there, be like, "Well, you wanted excitement."
after carjacking very violently, I might add, from Muppet Movie, after carjacking a semi truck because she was trying to hitchhike, and she like throws the guy out of the truck. Yeah, it was definitely I mean, just this discussion alone like proves it's the best one. But on a side note, I also learned from Fozzie Bear in this movie that if you put enough sugar in champagne, it tastes just like ginger ale. And I don't remember if at the same scene, Kermit is astonished at the price of the entree, and I can't remember. It's bothering me that I actually can't remember the name of the vehicle in the reference, but he says like, he like gets all shocked, and Fozzie's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing. It's just that the roast beef costs the same amount as a Buick Skylark, or I think it's a Buick Skylark." I can't remember the actual name, year, make, and model of the vehicle, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just love that movie, specifically because of how crazy it is that you just pointed out.
For sure. Well, we're down to our top two, which there was a clear winner. Like I figured there'd be closer to the top two, but it was pretty distinct on which one was number one. So obviously I'm not going to just reveal number two, because that'll be obvious what number one is just based on math. So I'll just say both. Number two was The Muppets, that came out in 2011. And that means the number one Muppet movie ranked was the original The Muppet Movie from 1979.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the top two. Let's start with the one that was co-created with Jason Segel. That was the kind of the revival of the Muppets after they hadn't been in a movie since Muppets from Space in 1999, coming back in 2011 to the big screen, which it was just called The Muppets. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. What did everyone think of the 2011 Muppet Movie?
For me, this is like how, Mark, you were saying that for one of those, like the songs are on your running playlist. Man or Muppet, I could sing that to you. I could serenade you with that song. The soundtrack of this movie is brilliant. And the Jim Parsons and the man versus,
yeah.
So
I mean, it is why it's the only Oscar the Muppets ever got.
Right.
Between Aaron finding out his kink about Miss Piggy and Marissa wanting to serenade, there's a lot of sexual things coming out with the Muppets.
I will double down on that and just say
Muppets After Dark.
it was a true revival of the Muppets, because I was disenchanted since '92 of a lot of Muppet movies, and went and saw that one in the theater and was like, okay, they really are acknowledging a lot of the things they did wrong in the past, and they've really revamped it to make it really just fun and entertaining, and it was a blast. It wasn't, I put that one, I think, as my third favorite, but I will also double down, Marissa, and say Me Party is just an ingenious song in that
They're all brilliant,
but Me Party, Amy Adams, first of all, I mean, I'll watch Amy Adams do anything, but like Me Party specifically is a particular highlight of that movie, where she's just going to party by herself, and that's totally cool, because I'm going to fucking own it, and I'm having a Me Party. And I've stolen that, and I have used that in other scenarios.
Yeah. I personally enjoy this one a lot, just because you can feel the amount of love that Jason Segel put into the script, and the little Easter eggs that are everywhere for the like diehard Muppets fans. And it's just all over the place, and you're just like, it's fun, and you get introduced to everyone again and see what happened. And you know, also Miss Piggy literally is like, I run Chanel now, or whatever. Like, she's like, I don't need any of you. I'm fine. I got Emily Blunt from Devil Wears Prada as my assistant, okay? Because it was the same character, or at least it was supposed to be.
Right.
The Devil Wears Prada character. And I'm like, you know what? Way to go, Miss Piggy. And it takes them all like groveling to get her back. And eventually she's like, you know what? I'll do it. Because I want.
Yeah.
Not because of any of you, though.
I really appreciated that, you know, it being like nearly like what, like a 20-year hiatus for feature films, at least. They went with something a little bit different for the plot. Like, sure, it was the whole like getting the gang back together plot point, but the fact that they had Walter, which was an entirely new Muppet character who's brothers with Jason Segel, which I'm curious about that inter-puppet human possible relations there. But like there's a lot of gags between Walter and Gary, just even like the montage sequence of them growing up, and it's like Jason Segel's character's like getting taller and they're like marking it, and like Walter just isn't growing at all. And the fact that they are Muppet fans, so like in this movie, the Muppets exist as like this iconic franchise, like an iconic TV show. And so it's the Muppets being like almost like a different version of themselves, opposed to going with some sort of genre, which like the first one was like an origin road movie, and then there's the caper, there's pirates, there's Christmas Carol. A lot of those had like kind of genres or something that they were going on, where this was just like a revival of sorts, but them also being part of the universe which it's taking place. And also a very interesting choice for Chris Cooper as the villain, with the whole maniacal laugh.
I do also love that scene where they're just talking about how he talks, where he's like, "Nah, see," and they're like, "Do people really talk like that?"
Yeah, I just think the musical performances are great. Jason Segel and Amy Adams are great. It felt like they really captured what the Muppets were all about when they'd just been away from movies for so long. So I understand why this is towards the top. This was towards the top for me as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, did anyone have this as their favorite?
Was going to be my favorite until I rewatched the original and fell in love with that one again. But this one is very, very close.
Yeah. So anyone else have any thoughts on the Muppets before we move on to the original?
I think just that, like what you were saying, it's like seeing the Muppets in a different light. You see them make it to the big time, basically. Like even in the other ones, like they, make it in LA and they get signed or whatever. But now we see them years later, how we see them in this movie as idols, as heroes, as like these great things that are their stars, And so it's interesting to see that in the movie. And I think that's why we all ranked it so high, is because we're seeing it how we see the Muppets. And it brings us back to the Muppets.
Absolutely.
That is an excellent point.
This one is on the nostalgia factor for me again, because in 2011, my son was born, and he had some medical complications, so he was a very poor sleeper. So the first time I actually saw this was at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was rocking him, trying to get him to go to sleep. And I just remember watching the Muppets and holding my newborn son and just making that connection, not having anything to do like what's happening in the movie, but just seeing something that I loved as a child and then holding my child. It's just a little nostalgia factor. So
Wayne always has the most heartfelt
I know.
stories.
Yeah.
Glad I don't hate this one.
Right.
Definitely. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the number one, which I'll admit, I was surprised, which was the original Muppet movie from 1979. Apparently still seen as the favorite and the best. Which was it 2 people named this as their favorite, or was it 3?
I did.
Oh, it was 3. Okay, so yeah, of course, that makes sense. Half the panel saying it's their favorite. So you guys go ahead. Let's talk about it. It's your favorite.
I mean, come on, it's a bear in a natural habitat, a Studebaker.
I think this one has the best puns just of all Muppet movies, especially like one of my favorite all-time jokes that I've ever heard is from that movie. It's whenever they're talking to Kermit or whatever, and they're like, "Well, I thought frogs could do that." He's like, "No, that's a myth. And then there's always this random woman like, "Yes," and she's like, "Oh, it's someone else on the list." I think she just pops up every once in a while. And I'm like, that's hilarious. Also, you can't beat Rainbow Connection. It's probably my all-time favorite, Muppet song. It's great. It's got heart behind it. And what else was there? Oh, and it has my favorite Muppet fourth wall breaking gag ever. When they get in the Studebaker and they meet at like the church that Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem are turning into an organic coffee shop. And they're like, "Well, where did you guys come from?" And then Fozzie just starts recapping the movie. And then Kermit's like, whoa. You can't just say what just happened in the movie. Everyone's going to get bored. But how are they going to know? And then he pulls out a script. And the Dr. Teeth is like, yes, the Muppet Movie. Opening in a helicopter shot, zooming in towards Kermit singing Rainbow Connection in a swamp. And then it comes into play later because they're all lost in the desert, and then Dr. Teeth comes to pick them up. And they're like, how did you know where we were? He's like, we read the script. We know where to go next, too. I'm like, that's great. That's great. That's brilliant. That's amazing. And they also give every character at least a little bit of time to shine in this, you know? Like, I feel like it's like, hey, it's our first movie. We want to make sure that everyone from at least the show or everyone who's involved gets a nice little spotlight. And I feel that way about every character in it. Like Gonzo, when he's like, oh, they like pick him up and he's like, I'm going to Bombay, India to be a movie star. And they're like, what? Why are you going there? And a fun fact, it's the second largest movie industry in the world. So
Right.
And they have the great
that's why.
that is like, oh, if you want to take the easy way and go to LA.
Oh yeah. Easy.
Honestly.
And it has a 100-foot tall animal busting through the roof of a building. I mean, there's also that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Fozzie being introduced, Waka Waka, with the terrible comedy.
Oh yeah.
I think I didn't quite remember like that aspect of Fozzie because like seeing so many of the other genre Muppets like first before realizing that that's part of like Fozzie's character is like the bad jokes. And I think it is a road movie, but as Marc was saying, that you kind of each person gets a little bit as you're going along and kind of the gang is coming together. The fact that the villain is a guy who wants Kermit to do an ad spot for Frog Legs.
Which is pretty messed up.
Yeah, like, which is just like, that's like if you're going to like a live chicken, it's just like, why don't you want to be the spokesperson for KFC? Like, ridiculous.
I also think Mel Brooks probably has the best little cameo right before he gets the crap beaten out of him by Miss Piggy. Where it's like they capture Kermit, they're all tied up after their date, and then he's like, oh, we're gonna fry Kermit's brain, and then Miss Piggy just like beats the crap out of like 8 people. And then fries Mel Brooks's brain where he like becomes like a weird frog because he was a weird scientist. It's hilarious. It never fails to make me laugh.
I always giggled at the Big Bird cameo myself.
Yeah.
Breaking
Yeah.
in public.
It's like a crossover, but they're all Muppets, so not really, but it kind of was, or felt like.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
the cameos in this movie are insane. Like, because I hadn't seen it in I don't know, probably 10 15 years, I finally throw it on, and Richard Pryor, Steve Martin, it's just like, it feels like every scene
Orson
had a cameo.
Welles.
Yeah.
Dom
We're
Bell-
like, oh, bust out that famous, the rich and famous contract for Kermit the Frog. You're like, what are you doing here, Orson Welles?
Like even Dom DeLuise makes an appearance in this one.
Oh,
yeah.
Martin as that waiter is just like, oh, can I leave? Can I try it for you? Like, oh my God, that's what I want to be.
The finest wine from Idaho.
Can you taste it for us? Sure. You're like,
Spits it out, and then I just love when they're like, oh, and can we get straws
I was
for
ready.
our wine?
And he has those short shorts,
Right.
in which Richard Pryor is just a balloon salesman.
Yeah.
Trying to help Gonzo woo his chicken. Like, he's like, sweet, you're a whatever, you're a chicken, you got to get that lady some balloons.
Which we all know that's the key to ladies' hearts, is just more balloons.
More balloons will do it.
I mean, I can vouch for that.
Yeah, balloons, they're big with the ladies. Yeah, this movie, I think, even though like the plot is pretty much just like a road movie of kind of like them coming together before they were to probably have like the TV show, even though the TV show was before, I thought it was just so interesting how it was just littered with cameos and just all the technological advances that they did to, you know, have Muppets driving and like riding bikes and like just doing all of these physical gags, which I'm sure they did in some form on the show, but I think on the big screen just had audiences at that time just like, wait, how the fuck is this happening?
Right.
I think that's what happened every time they gave Jim Henson any kind of budget. You're just like, whoa, 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 what's going on? What's happening? What's like, you know, like like whenever he was like, oh, I'm going to make a Dark Crystal. And everyone's like, what is going on, dude?
Yeah. We should do a whole other scene about talking about just the Dark Crystal. We could go into that for a while.
Oh yeah, we could go on that forever.
The production of that is insane. But not to just to go along with your point, and not to just repeat it. They had a 100-foot tall animal bust out of a roof. That's the only movie where a Muppet has been non-Muppet size and like extremely, you know, in that case. I loved 100-foot tall. I loved 100-foot tall animal. Like, that's all I gotta say.
The Krishna bit that they did like 5 times in the beginning.
I didn't hear what you
They
said.
would be like, are you lost? Have you tried Hare Krishna?
Right.
Like 5 different times, and they pull up to the church, and then they're like, "Are you lost? Meet Reverend Hare Krishna." Like,
Yeah.
like, the kids are gonna understand
Right.
what. Like,
To be honest, I thought it was Hare Krishna for the longest time. Like, oh, okay. Hey, not like, you know, like 10 minutes ago.
that's
I also really enjoy that they start in the movie, which I think is kind of a weird. Again, I'm going back to constantly talking about the Muppets breaking the fourth wall, but it's like they meet Sweetums at the car lot, but then he shows up later to their screening of the movie by busting through at the end of the movie. Because it's like the whole thing is them watching the movie they made about the Muppets getting together, but they just kind of ditched Sweetums and then never picked him up.
It's
And
so
he's like,
meta.
"I'm ready, cry."
I want to go to Hollywood too. Wait for me.
So meta.
Yeah, just the fact that they were able to find ways to cram in all the Muppets in some way, all these cameos, so many that we didn't even get to mention, like James Coburn, Carol Kane, Elliot Gould. Well, obviously we talked about Mel Brooks, Cloris Leachman, just Bob Hope. It just like
It goes on and on.
this was just like an all-star cameo cast on top of like having all the Muppets involved. Like it's just and even like Sesame Street cameos, like it just has like literally everything. So I think it's understandable why this is not only towards the top, but it's just apparently still number one, first to come out and still the best.
So basically, we're all saying that the Muppets movies just never got any better.
They peaked.
They peaked with the first one. Yeah, they started off with their best, and we're just like, oh, downhill from here.
You know,
Well,
I didn't even think about it that way.
I think because they threw so much at it, and then like different ones, they tried different genres. Whereas like this one probably was, and it's been years since I've seen any of like the original TV show, but like this probably felt like the most like that. I'm guessing, but I did recently buy a DVD of season 2 of the original Muppet show, so I'm going to be checking that out soon. But that is our ranking of the Muppet movies, which, just to recap, last was
Muppets in Space.
Muppets from
It was
Space.
very clearly Muppets in Space.
Marc is very passionate about that one. Muppets Most Wanted, Muppets Take Manhattan, Muppet Treasure Island, criminally underrated, then a Muppet Christmas Carol, Great Muppet Caper, The Muppets, and then The Muppet Movie. So yeah, that is the ranking. Would anyone, before we sign off, like to plug their social medias again, or where people can catch them if they'd like to check you out in some other fashion?
You can find me on Instagram. The handle is Marc is Dumb.
Just met you, but
I just want to say that my top three were the top three. They're just not in the right order. But you can also find me at youtube.com/Paul Desman. I do a silly little cooking show. I'm not a cook, but I make stuff that you can eat. So come check it out.
All right, I'm going.
Okay.
You can find me in my podcast that Now Showing with Mike and Wayne right here on Entertainment Buffet. I am on all social medias. Wayne Juerke, Juerke. Looks like jerk, but I am a pretty nice guy. Oh.
Hey.
And I'm on the TikTok with called Words with Wayne. It's a new thing that I'm launching, just kind of chatting about life and whatnot. So I would love to chat. Hit me up.
I'm Marissa Steele, and you can find all my social media on my website, marissastealyourgirl.com, because I'm here to steal your girl. So. And I apologize again one more time, Wayne. For...
You know what? Take my wife, please.
Like I said earlier, you can find me on anywhere if you search Aaron. So it's YEAHHARANN. Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
It's hilarious that you're trying to remember your own
I
handle.
know, right? He's
It
plugging
doesn't do well for searching if you don't know how to spell your own name.
He's trying to.
I
plug
think it should
himself for
just
himself.
change it to Piggy Kink 69.
That will put me in an entirely different group of people. And
Waiting to hear the problem. But yeah. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Brandon Prosek. Hashtag Piggy Kink. Yeah, please follow, like, subscribe, share Entertainment Buffet and the Entertainment Buffet podcast. Thank you guys all for being on this Muppet panel. Much like the Muppets, this was wild, but it was fun to do. So yeah, thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Brendan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
it's super fun.
All right. Hashtag Piggy Kink, and we're out. No.